from Force 13 HQ and from our contributors from around the world. This is June 6, 2018. Here's your tropical weather bulletin for June the 6th, 2018. We have one cyclone active and two inverse active, although that may be three depending on your criteria. 90W and 91W, which we discussed last night, are effectively one thing, and we're treating it as such at this point. Let's take a look at the overviews to explain that a little better. But first of all, the Eastern Pacific, which shows Invest 91E at the time of broadcast, a near 100% chance of development. I say the time of broadcast because that could change very soon to become an actual tropical cyclone, either tropical depression or tropical storm. So that could happen almost certainly before the next tropical weather bulletin at any rate. And there's the area of interest behind that as well, with a 50% chance in the next 5 days, according to the National Hurricane Center. Models suggest that both will form and both will become possibly significant hurricanes, although they will remain out at sea most likely. We'll check up on the models shortly. North Atlantic, obviously no activity right now, so West Pacific is the next one. Tropical Storm 5W. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center has put that as a tropical storm, weak tropical storm at that. Expected peak 45 miles an hour according to our estimates at this time. JMA, the Japanese Meteorological Agency, are the authority in naming the storms. That they don't believe at this time that it is a tropical storm yet. They're staying with 35 miles per hour. Very complicated around this part of the world. An Invest 91W or 90W or whichever one's which, 70% chance or so of developing into a tropical cyclone. If it does, it'll be a very broad one. And then its general direction we expect will be towards north and then towards the northeast as a curve round there as it first moves off towards the northwest. Nothing else at this time, so let's move on to the satellite pictures, which will probably be the most interesting aspect. Here is the open East Pacific. You can see the Invest on the right hand side of the image there, starting to gather momentum, and it is likely to become a tropical cyclone very soon, as stated. You can't see the other area of interest yet, but you can clearly see rotation in that system on the right hand side, and that will be most likely our first named storm very soon. A little bit of convection over there in the western part of the picture, but nothing to write home about. The Atlantic looks like this. Very little going on in the open ocean at all, so still we're looking at the Gulf of Mexico, Western Caribbean area for any development, and it doesn't look forthcoming at the moment. There is some interesting feature off the Gulf Coast there, possible thunderstorm activity there, and certainly significant rainfall by the looks of things, and maybe thunderstorms developing along the eastern coast of Florida right now. Just about into the Pacific there towards the south, there is a lot of cloud coverage. Certainly, it's very disorganized though, and anything that does form behind this first system in the East Pacific will take some time, even if it is quite likely. The Western Pacific looks like this. It's a little bit clunky actually, not very many frames in this image, that's not my fault. But you can see 5W on the left hand side. It does have the characteristics there of a very minimal tropical storm, as you can see. Significant convection, especially to the western side of the cyclone. And it's sort of at the tail end of that frontal system that's moving through eastern China and onwards into Japan there, sort of influencing it really. The storm itself is likely to, at least the models think it's probably going to stall out either inland, which would probably mean the death of it, or possibly, they were hinting yesterday, maybe that it would move back out to sea just a little bit, possibly enough for regeneration. Models seem to have backed off that recently. You can see what's beginning to develop now in the Philippine Sea, an extremely broad singular circulation, which we will see sooner or later. You can see two bands of convection left and right. Those are the amalgamation of both invests, I suppose, and it's going to be a one big broad mess in the next few days, which will probably be depicted better on the models later on. There's the Australian region. Southern Hemisphere, in case you were wondering, is dead. And the Indian Ocean, north and south, you can see what's going on here. Again, very little, just a little bit of thunderstorm activity in the Bay of Bengal, but really very little. Here's the floaters, including what we can see from GOES 16 of 91E as it moves off towards the west. Not looking quite as impressive on infrared at this time, but it will get there, and possibly tropical depression status on the way. It doesn't look to me like it would have tropical storm force winds at this time. And there you can see the two other systems as well close up. 5W on the left hand side, and Invest 9091W in the middle there. And you can see again a sort of gulf of nothingness in between those two areas of convection. Let's now go back and to the sea surface temperatures. This is the latest. This should be up to date as far as I'm aware. Well, it is from the 4th, so it is a day old, but shouldn't make too much difference. The Pacific area there, where all of the storms are located, all the systems are located. 5W, I mean, sea surface temperatures are going to become less of an issue as time goes on, but temperatures around 28, maybe 29 degrees Celsius. A little bit warmer for the system in the Philippine Sea, 30 degrees, possibly touching 31. And for 91E, temperatures are starting to decline a little, around 29 Celsius still, and for the system behind it, a little warmer. Not much else to say about that, apart from the Atlantic remains fairly cold, especially out in the middle part. The Gulf, of course, is still pretty warm and will remain so throughout the year. So let's now take a look at the forecast from the models, and here they are. So let's take a look through the Atlantic first of all as we enter this coming week. You can see time going on here and not much happening in the evolution of the Atlantic Ocean. No new storm activity really anywhere in the basin, no cyclonic rotations, no nothing really. A little bit breezy along the Caribbean Sea coast, and you can just about see that storm in the Pacific there as we enter the start of next week. That's the one behind 91E. We'll see it better on this graphic perhaps. We'll certainly see 91E, there it is. Moving off towards the west, gaining tropical storm force winds pretty quickly, gaining hurricane force winds at that by Thursday. And then on Friday, it's sort of a westward motion, intensifying into the weekend, possibly getting to Category 3 status. And a little wobble, and then actually a northwestward motion, according to the GFS model. That would kill the storm pretty much as it moves off towards the northwest. And behind it, you can see again that other system, possibly Category 4. But that is long range. Here's the Western Pacific as we go through the week. First of all, you can see 5W, the center, still remaining offshore until Thursday according to GFS, and then look at this mess that begins as we enter Friday. There's still some distinct circulations there, merging into one as we enter the weekend, and then moving off towards the northeast. There's a very broad, disorganized, I'm guessing tropical storm, and possibly even making a run for hurricane status, and then one or two systems behind that as well, which could also be tropical. Looks like a complete mess, a loopy mess in the Western Pacific, quite like what we saw in 2016, I think it was, when we had those 4 storms out there together. Here's the North Indian Ocean. Not much to talk about here either as we enter the next 7-day period. Although the winds are increasing generally out at sea, especially in the Arabian Sea, which will be reaching gale force, but nothing tropical related as we enter the following week. Cloud coverage may well increase as well over that area. Okay then, let's return. Hopefully that's the right button. There it is. The Tropical Weather Bulletin, that's in case you didn't know. There's no wind shear projection right now either, at least not the usual channels, so we'll go straight to the computer models. The HWRF looks like this for 5W. It says pretty much the same as the GFS for the Invest in the Philippine Sea, or at least it did last time I checked, something like what the GFS said. And 91E I thought would be more interesting to show. HWRF thinks it will get to Category 2, maybe touching Category 3 status, and indeed for 5W as it makes its very slow movement the models think, towards its landfall in mainland China, it could gain some significant intensity. HWRF is really going off the deep end, thinking it will get from 40 miles an hour right now to 70 miles per hour by the time it gets to land. That would obviously be a significant issue for the coast of China, who I'm guessing at the moment is only braced for a tropical storm, because that's what it is, but I doubt it will do it to that extent, but strengthening is possible. Looking at RAL, similar projections here, and you can see how divergent those models are in the very short term indeed. In fact, I think some models there, can't tell which, are possibly keeping it away from land, stalling pretty much on the spot and then moving slowly towards the east. It is a bit of a mess where that storm is right now. Who knows what may happen, but obviously if it does stay further offshore, then the chances of either maintaining intensity or regenerating will increase. But at the moment, the official track is that it will move inland. And then you've got Invest 91E on the right hand side. One of the models there can't be an operational model, must be a statistical model. Is apparently calling for 2 loops. Something must be up with that one. The rest of them, apart from one, I think, are being sensible and are taking it pretty much as we expect towards the west-northwest. And the RAM visualization here shows how much of an outlier the HWRF is. The next one there is the CTCX, which thinks it will get to moderate tropical storm status, but I think that one is out of date actually, so that doesn't count either. And then you've got the GFS there, which thinks the storm is done and will weaken from here on in. You can see the wind shear is expected to increase after day 2, or after 2 days from now, maybe a little bit less than that. And relative humidity is on a slight decline. In the little time we managed to prepare this tropical weather bulletin today, there's very little on this day activity, although something interesting did happen in the area. Typhoon Maggie made landfall not far from Hong Kong as a Category 1, making landfall in China on this day. And this is where we were on June the 2nd. With the formation of the new storm, it brings us up to 5, pretty much in line with the forecast. Obviously we don't take it by the exact dates, but the 2018 forecast calling for a total of 29 storms this year in the Western Pacific. Tomorrow's tropical weather bulletin, I'm guessing, will feature more of the Eastern Pacific and more emphasis on the Eastern Pacific action, unless we get something out of 9190W. It's going to be a busy few days in the tropics, quite possibly. In any case, even though not all of the systems are affecting land. That's all for now. To our outlets. You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website force13.com. You can also find our YouTube page, search Force 13, subscribe if you haven't. You can also find our Facebook page under the same name, and we're also on Twitter. It's at Force 13 if you'd like to get in touch or follow our page there. This week, Force 13 also launched a new Patreon page if you'd like to consider helping the project out, supporting it as it goes even bigger and better, as Alex Zaragoza and Hank Dulce has done so far. Please consider it. Take a look at the page. All contributions are invested straight back into the project. You can also add Force 13 on Skype and my personal account, Fool13 at extension 9094 on Discord for tropical weather chat.